In this video, I'm going to show you some tips for making great photos of a black subject on a black background. Hey, it's Jeahn here with Luma University, and to photograph a black subject on a black background is actually a little tricky. And this is true anytime you're photographing something of a similar color on a similar background. The trick is to create contrast that allows the subject to stand out while not creating an exposure discrepancy. So there are a couple of tricks that I want to show you, and it's actually pretty easy. I'm going to have two setups. One of them is just going to be a very simple setup with a window and some foam board, and then we're going to go into a more advanced setup that allows you to have a lot more control over your subject, but both of them will create really nice results, as you will hopefully see. Also, welcome to the first long form video on this channel in a very long time. The reason that I'm creating a long form video is because we hit 1,000 subscribers. Thank you all so much. That's absolutely crazy. And I'm just really excited to share more with you. So for those of you who really enjoy getting more in depth with stuff, this video is going to cover everything in more detail than I usually do in my shorts. And that is just because I really want to kind of provide a higher level of understanding to those of you who are really interested in that. But yeah, without any further ado, let's go ahead and do the first shoot. For today's subject, I'm going to be photographing this Logitech MX Master mouse. I had a Logitech MX Master for years because I would do professional video editing, and I loved that mouse, and it finally died, so I had to go ahead and upgrade. It's been a long time coming for me, but I thought before I get it dirty with all my sweaty, gritty fingerprints that I would take this and try to make a really nice kind of modern product shot. So yeah, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so the first thing that I need to do to prepare for this shoot is to find a way to levitate this object. And probably the most common way that commercial photographers do this is using an acrylic rod of some kind. The reason that you want clear is because it allows light to transmit through it. So I'm going to be using hot glue to just glue this on. I'm going to use a very minimal amount, and hot glue usually comes off very clean, but I'm going to go ahead and put just a small bit on here and let that cool. Once it turns clear, you know it's nice and cool. All right, so we have our little mouse lollipop here. It's nice and secure, not going anywhere. And to hold this up in our scene, it's actually really, really easy to use a C-stand knuckle clamp. And basically, I'm using the smallest little groove in here and inserting it and tightening it up just like this. And what's really awesome about this is it allows me to spin this mouse in whatever orientation that I want, and also I can rotate it up and down to get the exact angle of view that I want in my scene. So it's really super duper handy, and I've just got this little head mounted on a really light lighting stand, and that's it. So we have our little set here that we can go ahead and insert into our scene. Okay, so this is the basic starting setup, and I told you this would be pretty easy. This first one, pretty much anybody can do with just, you know, a window and a really cheap piece of foam board. So what I have is the camera, or the mouse setup right here on the rod, and then I have my camera just a little bit away from it. So what I'm gonna do is start to think about the lighting just a little bit. I'm gonna throw up the black background. And as you can see, instantly just throwing the foam board straight up in the window like that has made a world of difference. Let's go ahead and try to get focus correct. Now, what you're seeing is a really nice rim light. So what the mask is creating, you would call the foam board a mask, is it's doing two things. It's creating a background, which is black, which is what we want, and it's also creating almost what looks like 3 light sources, or if you raised it up, it could be 4 underneath, and we might test that. But what it's doing is it's creating rim lighting or edge lighting, and this is just using a window. So you can already see it looks pretty cool. Obviously, it's not quite perfect because we still need some light coming on the left side there because it's getting lost maybe from the bottom. So what I'll do is I'll raise it up a little bit, and you can raise it up and just tape it to your window, which I think I'll do just to show you how simple this can be. But let's go ahead and take the shot just as an example so we can look at it on screen, and it's already pretty sweet, and we just have a window. So yeah, let's go ahead and see what happens when we move this set around a little bit and tweak the lighting. If I raise this up, we are getting more on the edge there, and that actually works pretty well right there. That gives us a little more light everywhere, but we're losing it on the top. So we might kind of find the fine line here and get something that we like. And to me, that's pretty good. Now, of course, I'm not getting the full background coverage, but I would prefer to get the lighting correct and not have the background coverage, and then just extend the background in post. So I'm gonna go ahead and tape this here for now. And of course, we can always tweak this later if we want to, but that's really simple. Just taped a piece of foam board directly to the window and it's good to go. So yeah, that's a really simple setup. Let's go ahead and see how it's looking here. And that's looking pretty cool as far as the lighting goes. Now, the whole subject is too dark. Obviously, there's still something not quite right with it, but we're getting the edges correct. So let me zoom in here so you can see we have this whole left edge with at least some kind of light on it, which is really nice, and even down towards the bottom, which is what we want. Now, the problem with this particular piece of foam board is it's extending too high and to the right, which is creating not enough exposure up here and to the side. So I think what I'll do is I might just either cut it down or I might find a piece that's smaller here. I actually do have a smaller piece already cut out, and this will probably help quite a bit. So this will give us more of that wraparound. Yeah, that's nicer, like that. I'm just gonna tack it right there. That there is gonna provide a lot more light on that right side. So let's go ahead and take another shot. Nice, and that's looking way better. So this light coming from the top here is really beautiful. Of course, this is a matte finish product, so it's creating a really nice fall off of light. We have the edge here showing some of that texture, and we have this whole ring around the bottom still, which is great. The only problem is we're going to have to extend this black background in post-production, but that is not a huge deal. So now what I need to do is figure out how to get more light into the subject because it is a little too dark. We're not seeing the contours that I want, and it's actually really easy. Let me show you. So what I have here is an acrylic mirror. You don't have to use acrylic. It could be a legit mirror. Just be careful of any sharp edges of the real glass and stuff like that. Or you could use reflective cardstock, which is really helpful too. They have silver reflective cardstock. I'm gonna see if this is big enough. It might not be. If it isn't, then I'll just grab a different piece. So I'm gonna come in here and take the light from the window and just shine it into the mouse. And depending on where I hold it and the position I'm at, I can create a sense of different forms of lighting. I definitely want to highlight this scroll wheel on the left, so that might be something that I focus on. And if this is all you have, just one reflective card, a window, a piece of foam board, and a way to hold this up, then you can actually light paint with this. You could take a shot like this, a shot like this, a shot like this, and comp it together in post. All right, so I'm really liking this composition. Everything is double checked. The focus looks good. The exposure is looking good. So let's go ahead and do some light painting. I'm going to just try to get some light in key areas just to kind of show this mouse off in all of its glory. Definitely want to bring out this Logi logo here because the client would want that for sure. That looks really sweet up top. Let's go ahead and get this thumb scroll wheel here. That's looking pretty nice as well. Now I want to try to get the palm rest and the thumb button. It's looking good. But that's it. That is a really basic way of doing a shot with just a window and some foam board and a reflective card. It makes life really easy and it looks fantastic in my opinion. So just a little bit of Photoshop work, comping them together, and you will get a result like this. So now moving on, I'm gonna go ahead and get started on kind of an initial setup for a studio shot, which will provide us with more control, but it's a very similar system. It's just that we have actual studio lighting instead. Okay, so I've got the set behind me. Let me go ahead and break down real quick what it is, and then we'll make some tweaks. So it's actually pretty similar to what we had before, and it's mimicking the window setup because this big old softbox, which is a 4-foot by 4-foot octabox, is acting as the window did. But the cool thing is we have more control over the exposure and the depth of field, although the principles remain the same. So if you look right here, we're actually a lot closer than before, which is something I failed to mention in the previous shoot, in that the closer that you get the subject to the background, the more wraparound of light there will be. If you want a nice sharp edge, then you'll bring the subject away from the background more so that it's reflecting off of less surface. But if you want it to kind of wrap around the subject more, bring it really close. And that's kind of what I'm doing here. It's about 6 inches, 8 inches away from the background. So looking at the shot as it is, it looks pretty sweet, honestly. We've got a really nice kind of fall off of light from the top. The trouble areas are this palm is completely black, so we'll need to figure out how to get some light back in. And of course we could do as we did before, just with some reflective card or some acrylic mirror of some kind and shine light back into here. But we also need to kind of fix up the Logitech logo there. So I think what we can do is add some additional lights just to show what is possible. Now, of course, you could have done this with the window setup as well if you had some studio lights, but let's go ahead and see what we can do. Okay, so the base shot is looking pretty good. It's basically an exact replica of what we had in the window light, but what I'm gonna do now is just kind of take my flashlight and shine it around and figure out how I can catch a little more detail that I want. Everything's looking pretty good, honestly, but this whole palm area needs to be enhanced a little bit, as well as I need to figure out how to get this logo, the Logitech logo, to reflect nicely back into camera, and the light position of that is a little tricky, but somewhere around here. And the trouble that we might get into with this particular setup, because we're so close to this background, is having light spill. And especially if you have a light far away, it's going to expose this just the same as this, which is gonna create kind of an ugly effect. So let me just show you that real quickly. I just have this light here with a grid, and you can already see we're casting light onto the background, which is no bueno because we want this to be pitch black. But I'll just give you a sense for what this could look like. So you can see now what's starting to happen is we're starting to cast light onto the background, which in this case, it actually looks pretty good. It's almost like we're putting a gradient on the background, which is a very high-end look. But the goal for this shoot is to shoot on pitch black. So there's a couple of ways to work around this. One would be we could set up the background to be farther away, but we would need a larger light source as a rim light, which would mean either creating a large scrim, like using something like this, which you could do, or it would require multiple long strip boxes on the top right, and so on. So one other thing we can do to kind of help mitigate how much light is reflecting off the background is to use a darker material. So I've got velvet, which absorbs light incredibly well. And I'm literally just going to drape this over the foam board here. And this may not be the perfect solution, but velvet, even this really cheap stuff, which I got on Amazon for like 20 bucks, you can see automatically that this is going to make it even darker. So there we go. Now just switching out the material has made it easier to get that background as dark as possible. You'll see that there's still some light coming through, but if I bring this light in as close as possible to my subject, then what I can do, because of the inverse square law, is I can turn the power of this light way down, because now I'm super duper close to the subject, just a couple inches away. And that means the light spill is going to be almost non-existent on the background, because one, we have a really dark background and absorbing a lot of light, and two, the light's really close to the subject, so the fall off from the subject to the background is greater, meaning that we're not getting any of that spill. So looking at the final result, this was without any sort of additional lighting at all, just the background light with the foam board background. And this was with a light additionally added to the front, highlighting the Logitech logo, adding some more detail in here. And we've now switched for a velvet backdrop, which is a super duper light absorbing material. And that's super great. So the last thing that I kind of want to do is get some light into the palm area here. It's looking really good. We're almost done, but I'm just going to get one more additional light to do that. So the same rules apply here. I'm gonna get the light as close as I can. Turn down the modeling lamp here. And I'm gonna try to get it into a position that shows off the palm section of the hand really well. Okay, that looks really nice, but actually it's way too bright because I really want to maintain some of that shadow. So I'm gonna drop the power way down and just see how that looks. Nice, much better. So now we're getting that detail that I wanted. So if I turn this light off and take the shot, we can see that there's basically no detail in the palm area, but this light is on very low power, and I just want enough to be able to start to see that detail to kind of show off how comfortable this mouse is. And there's the difference right there, just adds so much more detail. So there you have it. There's a really easy way to take photographs of a black subject on a black background while getting that separation. Just to recap real quick, you could either use a window or a softbox and then use some sort of a black object for the background, and then use the distance the subject is from the background to create how hard of an edge you want that surface to have, or edge lighting. And then if you want, you can add some additional lighting to kind of highlight the most important part parts of the object, and you're good to go. It's a pretty simple setup. So yeah, it's pretty easy. You can get some really amazing high-end looking shots with just one light and maybe a couple additional lights or some light painting with reflector cards if you need to create a really high-end and competent looking photo of a black subject on a black background. So that's it for this video. Again, thank you all so much for 1,000 subscribers. I cannot believe that we hit that milestone so quickly on this channel. If you like this video and you like my content and you enjoy learning about photography, be sure to subscribe and like the actual video so that the algorithm can boost it and other people can see it as well. That really does help support me a ton. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this one. It was pretty simple. I will see you in the next video. Bye.